Hello, everyone. Happy What's Brewing? Oh, good. This whole table is filling. Oh, that's great. Can you see me? Everyone's turning their chairs around. All right. I'm going to try to stay kind of in the general area because I know we try to record and get that to those that are at home. It's been a while since we've had one, right? A few things have happened. I went to Washington. Most of you know that. So I wanted to share a few just pictures and insight that I gained. But also, I had a birthday. So I'm older now. And wiser, debatable, but older for sure. Has anyone, I have to tell you, I'm most proud of the gift that my team gave me. Some of you might have seen this if you're on Facebook with me. But have you seen the trend where people have gooses at their front door? It's called a front porch goose, right? Somebody in Milano has one? Yeah. And the trend is, yeah, the goose goes out with her. So the trend is to put outfits on your goose. And there's an entire market for this. So if you're interested in making goose attire, you get rich doing it, I think. So I had run into the resident here who has it and got chatting with her because I knew about the trend. And she said her daughter had bought it for her. And I thought, man, I'm really thinking about getting one of these front porch gooses. And I came back and I researched it and I told the team I came across a desk goose, which is even more exciting because it's smaller, much more portable, and the outfits are cuter because they're so tiny. So I told Amy and the team about this, and of course, they're looking at me like, lady, grow up. You've been playing with dolls far too long. And on my birthday, not only did I get a desk goose from my team, but each director picked out outfits. So I have an entire wardrobe for my goose upstairs in my office. And I brought her here so you could see her. She's dressed up for Halloween. Oh, well, her hat doesn't want to stay. Goose lessons. Well, then, so I post it. I'm so excited about this. It filler, she's heavy. She's ceramic, right? Cute as punch. I like that. So I posted on Facebook, and I get a text message from my daughter who's down in San Diego, and she's like, I'm crying right now, Mom. And I'm like, what happened? She goes, there's a goose in the mail right now for you for your birthday. So I actually have two desk geese, right? Two desk geese. And the one that my daughter sent me has all kinds of fun signs. Some are not so fun. Some are angry, like your emails are not finding me well today. But this one says it's my emotional support goose. Do not pet. So I thought that was sweet. So the things you get excited about, I don't know. I was really geared up for a front door goose, and now the desk goose is all the rave. So, and the clothes are endless on Etsy and Amazon. Anything you want her to be, she can be. It's like Barbie. So you'll see her back at Thanksgiving and for Christmas. She's got an entire wardrobe. But more excitingly, I brought pictures from my Washington trip. So have any of you been to Yakima, Washington? Really? I'd never even heard of Yakima before they invited me. The whole reason behind this ED retreat was Jessica, who was my VPO for a long time, you all know that, had been supporting Terraces at Summit View up in Yakima, and they had not had Morrison contract dining ever. So when we acquired them, they were operating on their own. They're a much smaller community than us. They've only got 10 acres or so and serve month-to-month independent living residents. So they're not life plan or contract residents. They have assisted living and they have skilled nursing. So no memory support there. And they have very limited revenue since they don't have entry fees. So in terms of creating a unique proposition there in Yakima, they really focused on their restaurant, which truly operates as a restaurant open to the public, along with residents that they serve and who live there. And the whole reason she was so excited is every time she'd go up there, she'd really go up to support Judson Park in Des Moines. And then she'd take the 2-hour drive to Yakima, and she'd get there and she'd say, the food is the best food in all of human good. And it's like, if you know Jessica, she's easily excited, right? You give her a piece of salmon and some broccoli and she's over the moon. And so I thought, well, that's nice. I'm glad to hear they have good dining. And then Anita Holmes goes and writes in one of her reports, man, the food in Yakima is the best in human good. And I thought, okay, value her opinion, maybe more than Jessica's. And then a few others had visited, and I thought, why is everyone talking about it? I want to go see what they're doing. So one time she said, well, I'm going to go up there to support. Maybe you can just come along. We'll figure a reason why you need to go up there with me. And before you knew it, it became a snowball effect where all of the EDs that she supported said, we really want to see what you're talking about. We want to know what they're doing and how we can pull from their best practices and put those in our community. So she organized an entire retreat for us to go up there. This all kind of comes on the back of Human Good looking at moving away from contract dining through Morrison and operating more internally, creating a Human Good dining program. And although I think people want to immediately assume it's Morrison's bad and we go away from Morrison, the truth is, in 16 years that I've been with the company, I've watched them do this in various aspects of our business. For instance, sales. When I started with the company, sales was managed by a company, a for-profit company called Seniority. So they managed all of the sales offices in all of the ABHOW communities. And as we grew and acquired and then created and then merged with Southern Presbyterian Homes, they rolled sales into Human Good. They also did that with our marketing agency. For years, while we were under redevelopment, we contracted a vendor called Glenn Devins. They're the biggest in the business, and they do all of the mailers and website designs, and that's their expertise. And then once we got to a point where it made more sense for us to brand and to create a culture within Human Good, we rolled marketing into Human Good. So I anticipate this movement to be somewhat similar to what we've seen. It does not mean that Morrison Dining is suddenly gone and all of a sudden there's these new people here that are Human Good Dining. But really it's, how do we create a dining program where residents are truly getting what they're asking for? How do we source locally, depending on the markets where people want to? How do we start a program that aligns more wholly with Human Good rather than ask a company that has very different core values and business objectives to do what we want them to do? So it is not an overnight thing, but it put us in a space where we could talk about best practices, talk about things that were different, which is pretty much everything when it comes to dining. Every single community does it differently. And I think that's a wonderful thing going into this mindset of Human Good Dining, is that it's not going to be a cookie cutter standard. It's not going to be the menus that they're sending out to, Phoenix coming to Fresno. We're going to be able to really truly design a program that fits Fresno and that fits Los Gatos and that fits, Phoenix, Arizona. So just a few pictures and tidbits to share. This is a picture right off the balcony of the Airbnb where we stayed. We stayed in a place called Suncadia, if you're familiar with that. It sits right between Des Moines, Washington, and Yakima. And of course, kind of what I summarized here is that we went up there specifically to see TSV, which is Terraces of Summit View. We also stopped in at Judson Park since we had flown into Seattle. And they were in preparation, moving towards self-operating dining, which was announced on Cubigo and all of our Human Good intranets on the 1st of October. And then, of course, getting us all together to share what we do the same and what we do differently, so we could start to think about what that's going to look like in each community. So a little bit about Terrace Summit View. I told you they're a 10-acre campus. They have assisted living and skilled nursing, in addition to their independent living, which is only month to month. The reason I preface everything with that is I know that what they're doing cannot just be replicated here. TSJG is, 2.5 times the size. We have multiple dining venues, And what our residents want in the Central Valley is very different than what people want in Yakima. So the idea wasn't just to go and get what they were doing and bring it back here and slap it on like a sticker. It was just finding little things that they were doing that could be introduced and maybe not introduced. Maybe we talk about it, in a community meeting of some kind or a dining committee and start to flesh out some of their best practices here. First and foremost, they do have one single dining venue. It is a bistro, as they call it, and they call it Bistro 58. The community opened in 1958. And when you walk into it, it is facing kind of one of their main streets with some visitor parking because it is open to the public. So some of the small businesses in the area do stop by and grab food there. But when you walk in, it is very similar to a restaurant where you stop and there is a hostess that seats you. They do not have reservations unless there are large parties, which means you would show up at 5:30 and you may sit there for 10 or 15 minutes in the lobby area, whether you want a glass or wine or just wait, just like any other restaurant. If you don't have reservations, you wait to be seated. I asked about the hostess thing because that was one of the things that we often bring up when we talk about TSJG. And they have a part-time team member who works 3 hours a day. So again, it's a very niche position there. That person is a student, is what I was told, and then picks up 3 hours a day working as their attendant or their hostess. On the days that that person is not working, then they have kind of their front room or dining room manager handle that or facilitate that for them. These little items here on the, let's see, I don't want to mess this up. Right here, the welcome to the bistro and then the nightly features. Those are in-mount TV screens. So they're inside of the wall, no glare, very, very classy. What I thought was so interesting is they did not have a design team at all. The executive director, Travis, their dining director and head chef, their community life director, which would be like Joe Hansen, and their sales assistant, which would be like Emily, were really the brains that went behind the design, whether it was colors, whether it was decor, table purchasing, plateware, all of that. When you walk in, it's actually not a very large space. I know this picture makes it kind of grand, but over here where this tree is the entrance, right? So then you've got this section here of tables. They look like two tops. You've got a four top, a two top, and then like a six, and then another 6, 2, 2, 4, and then two tops. There's not a lot of seating in that space. What I found really neat was this room right here. It has big, beautiful windows. I hope I grabbed a picture of it. And when I saw people going in, I thought, oh, that must be a party. It looked like their private dining room. So I asked about it. It's called community dining. You show up as a single person, you go into the community dining space. It's one large table, no reservations needed, and it literally is open to all. This is just kind of a different angle. So here's the hostess station kind of looking back. This is not part of the dining room. That actually enters into what they call their chapel space that's around the room. But all of this wood kind of shelving was all in the place already. So they kept the wood accents. Everything else is new, from the flooring, which I thought was very courageous to go with such a light color flooring, all carpet, and these are carpet tiles. They did square tables, all quartz or granite, and then kind of a blue, I guess, accent color, if you would. Here's that community room, which I absolutely love. Big, nice space, but if you had a private party, I maybe possibly reserve that. These are my pictures, which they don't do them justice. I have them on my phone. They didn't transfer very well. The reason I brought this up is part of what we talked about is menu and variety. That was a huge part of the brainstorming session. What I realized very quickly as I started to itemize and share it with everyone in the room is TSJG does a lot. It almost felt like we were doing too much in comparison to what others were talking about. So the menu in that restaurant changes every 8 weeks. They've got seasonal features. There are 4 of them. They've got 5 soup and salad options. They've got 6 items that fall into handhelds or small servings. They've got 7 items under house favorites, which would be considered entree, 4 small plates, 2 protein or veggie only, 8 sides, and 6 desserts. That was their menu. The neat thing up here is they did offer a spotlight dish. So every week, somebody in the kitchen, I'm assuming a cook, would come up with a special for the week, and that would be featured all week. So when you sat down, the server would stop by, get your drinks going, and share the weekly special with you. But this was what was in rotation for their entire community for 8 weeks, where, again, that's not my suggestion, but I think about this is not even what we have offered at Bistro. And then you add in Speranza and Action Stations in Monte Carlo, I realized, and then Grab and Go and all of the dining opportunities that we have here. And I thought, well, that would be quite the shock, right? Just to swap it to something else. Yes, Phil? They do have a point system. I wouldn't say it's necessarily similar, but it is 15 points per resident per day, and they do not roll over. I will say, and I know the numbers are very blurred on my picture. I can always pull up a camera if you're interested after. The price points were very low. So I did ask, and they said they'd eat typically a full meal with them in the restaurants. But then again, their apartments have what I would call half kitchens. So small cooktops, microwave, so they could still prepare meals. They weren't nearly as large as our kitchens in our independent living apartments, but it's obvious that they're cooking at home as well. Yes, only 1 meal a day. Only 1 meal a day. Yep. These were just a few of the dishes at the table because there was a large group of us. Most of us kind of ordered and then tried everybody's items, but directly off that menu, the Brussels sprout nachos, which you can kind of see has eggs on top, which I was like, what in the goodness gracious? But when I pulled the egg back, because I can't eat eggs like that, I'm weird. When I pulled the egg back, it was a delightful Brussels sprout nacho, and it was really, really good. The fig pizza, it was fig with spinach, the Alaskan salmon over broccoli, lobster mac and cheese, the elevated grilled cheese and tomato bisque. That's what I had for dinner. The stone fruit salad, the tableside s'more, which was served in this fancy smoked dome. So when the dome came up, all of the smell kind of came all over. It smelled just like a campfire. And then they did house-made biscotti there with a kind of a espresso drink. But this was just a few of the items from that dinner that night. You can see their plateware is very different. It is kind of more of like a pottery barn almost kind of quality, colored, a little bit heavier stone finish. So again, the considerations when we go into purchasing new smallwares is always whether it was heavy and whether it's going to plate well for the chefs. This seemed to do the trick, even though it was completely different than anything I've seen in any of the human good communities. They tend to have white dishes. They're often worried about the weight of the dishes. And here they kind of took a different approach. Again, my pictures from my phone are terrible once they transfer. The group consisted of a few folks. So Jessica Lopez, Michael from Plymouth Village, Jonathan from Judson Park, Melinda, she's from Regents Point down in Irvine. M is from Terraces of Phoenix. This is Travis. He's the one who operates Terraces at Summit View. And then myself, and then Judd, who operates Terraces of Boise. So that was the group that went up there. Of that group, Jonathan is now self-op. Travis has been operating self-op. And Terraces of Boise has also. So they were able to bring kind of what they're doing and have us start talking and collaborating. Again, not with an intention to come back and change dining, but to bring a lot of those practices here. If you were wondering what yes. Self-op is when you are not contracting or paying a dining vendor. So they're doing it in-house. The chef, everyone from the chef to the hostess is a human good employee, and they are not paying a contract vendor like Morrison. The best part of the whole trip, anybody guess? The scenery. It was beautiful. But for me, it was the fact that I found a lot of deer, and I even got to feed one. So I enticed this guy, which you can barely see, from all the way up here down the hill with my Yakima apples. I decided that morning when I went out for a walk, I'm going to cut some of these apples up just in case. We seen the biggest bucks. I mean, they were not friendly at all. They were at a far, and they would make these loud, I call them moaning sounds or something out in the wild. It was very interesting to be out there walking in the morning with all the wildlife. And then, of course, I have a video of the deer coming down, and Jessica has my cell phone, and she goes, "It's happening." She's just whispering, "It's happening. It's happening. It's happening. Oh my God, it's happening." The whole time in the video. So I chose not to put that up here because I didn't want to be embarrassed. All right. Questions about self-op dining, things you might have heard. More than anything, I have a bunch of ideas in my mind, and some of you have sat with me at dinner, and I've talked about just conceptually, what do we do with capital dollars? Is it the separation of higher levels of care dining from the main dining? Is it reimagining the back of house? If any of you have taken kitchen tours, what we're producing out of that space is just insane. It's so tight. There are so many reasons why we are regulated in that kitchen differently because it is connected to skilled nursing. Many of you know skilled nursing has its own kitchens. Why are we not cooking over there? So being able to think about, okay, we can actually cook over there, but what we can't do, which keeps us tied to the state requirements in that kitchen, is we can't have food delivered there. There's no storage in the health center for dry food or cold food, frozen food. So the moment the food for that building gets delivered to this location for freezing and storing, it puts this kitchen under state survey, right? So there are so many things that I'm trying to really look at from the big picture. It's like, I think we do a lot of options. At what point as a community do we want to talk about maybe not doing it all and get really good at doing some? Right now, I think we do a lot of things, but maybe just average, right? So how do we focus on one dining room, limit what we're offering, and really knock it out of the park, right? If you go to any great restaurant, they don't have a menu that changes every other day. I mean, any of you in this room were to go to your favorite restaurant in town, you're going there because your favorite item is on the menu, not because you're hoping it will be different. And I know that's not the same because you live here, right? It's not you're not visiting it. But I think these are all the little nuggets of thought that I have around dining that our dining committee talks about, and I hope to have maybe some subcommittee conversations around dining. Because what I do know is human good dining is coming. And I want to be an active participant in that for all of you. And going to the table and saying, Morrison sucks and we want our own people. And if you put Plia back at the dining station, everything, or the hostess station, the whole place will be fixed. We've got bigger problems. There are more things going on logistically because of our size. That we really want to shake out all of those. The dining points, that's been a topic for years from my perspective. It's something that's starting to bubble up in human good, and we're talking about it. Why are we doing it? Why is it that amount? Why doesn't it go up? Why doesn't it go to higher levels of care? There's so much to be talked about that I just want to share with all of you. I don't have the solution, but I am very much interested in being a part of it. And hearing from you good feedback, suggestions, critical thought about the way we run dining, all of that I welcome, as long as you're kind about it. That's a big part. I get some things that are not so kindly delivered, but I'm trying to be a part of the solution for good, for future. And in the meantime, I also want to make sure that people who work for us, like Amanda and Chef and Rosie and Roberto, who are employed by Morrison, still feel very much a part of this community and welcomed and part of Human Good, even though somebody else pays their paycheck. So juggling all of that, just to say, it was a wonderful retreat. I've got a ton of thoughts, and I often will sit down and talk with people about the crazy things that I think about when it comes to dining. And I encourage you to share via email or letter or stop by and chat with me if you have thoughts as well. Any questions about dining for now? Yes.
You did mention one facility, maybe more than one, but what I caught was that someone was doing a restaurant type thing that non-residents could come in and eat off the street. How did that work for them, and how big were they? It was that community, and so do the people that come in off the street have to make reservations to come in? They could just walk in. 'Cause it seems like that's another logistical problem, and we might be too big for that. But just wondered. We're very familiar. We were very familiar with a retirement facility in Hawaii where his stepmom was for many years, and it was 12 stories, 13 stories, a big place. But they were thrilled when they got their 5-star restaurant. I didn't ask that question back then and wish I had. How did they get it? What did they do? But we ate there many times and it was fantastic all the time. So I wish you well on this endeavor.
Thank you. A little piece to add to the guests who are not residents coming to the restaurant. And this is the one thing that I think I've told probably many people, if you've chatted with me at all about my trip. I was amazed by how quickly, and I put notes in my PowerPoint, but I didn't read the slides, how quickly the tables were turned, right? And I realized it's not just that their servers were quick. There was a culture in that community where dining was not the social hour. There were other things going on. So just like a restaurant, they came in, they were, very quickly served, specials delivered. They had this wonderful, I think I described it as a synchronized dance that never disrupted the table. I can't tell you how, and I know that's feedback that many of you have given about servers paying attention to the table, refilling your waters, bringing you your tickets timely. There was something about the way they were trained, and I chatted with their front of house manager, because it was just like you would expect in a very nice restaurant. I mean, water was being poured, dishes were being picked up. They didn't walk away empty-handed. There was a grace about it very quickly. But that to be said, there's something about the mindset when you're in a restaurant. If you're there celebrating a birthday or something, you're intending to stay for a bit. But if it's just grabbing dinner, you go in, you get your food. When they start to pull plates, someone's asking you, "Can I get you a dessert menu?" "Oh, no, I think I'm fine. No dessert tonight. I didn't leave room. Can I bring you a box?" "Perfect. Let me box up your plate. Let me take this away. Here is your check." It's sending the signal it's time to go. And it's in a subtle way. We've all been in a restaurant where that happens. The moment the ticket comes, what does the server say right away? "Oh, take your time," because it immediately signals it's time to go. Right? Am I right? That is part of it. So there was something about it where the tables were turning very quickly and they were able to seat more guests, because I asked, how many people are dining in here? It didn't feel very big. He said, "We serve 160 residents a night," which is what we're anticipating in Speranza. So it was just a matter of, again, the culture there is that you don't necessarily hang out in the dining room, because there was there was a happy hour thing going on outside, and activities planned. And I was telling the team, it's part in service. We got to make sure our team members get the right service, but also what about a culture change in terms of how we schedule activities? I know from my sales days, we don't schedule anything between really 2 and 4 unless it's a meeting like this, because all of you go home. And then when you come up to dinner, you do dinner, and only typically during holidays or on occasion special events is there something after dinner, right? So we're already sending you the message that dinner is the last activity of the day. whether we're intending that or not. That's just kind of part of how we've designed it over the years. So it would be an entire community mindset change, having Quincy and Lance strategically plan for activities after dinner so people would eat and then go. So then you can turn more tables. So little things like that.
For us, my husband and I, dinner is social. And we often cannot find a spot for the two of us with other people. And my brother and his wife are in a retirement community, and they have a big community table like that. And they also have seating, so they often will be sat with somebody they don't know. And people wait because sometimes you have to wait for a table. And there's a lot of socializing going on in that area. So, I really wish that somehow we could be more like that.
I hear that a lot. I think several of you have echoed the same comments of being seated with people so that you could have a place to sit without having to ask and possibly be turned away. That is something that we had in place that went away when we reintroduced the salad bar, because then we took that team member to manage the salad bar. But yes, I'm not opposed to any of those things. Yes, Phil?
I was impressed with the structural part of the dining room there with the high beams and the beautiful wood and everything. Has there been any thought here at the Speranza to knocking out that entire north wall, and putting in large windows so we have a view of the resident garden out there, and to give the whole restaurant a much more airy, large, full feeling? I've thought about that a number of times. I just wondered if that's ever been considered.
I can tell you in the 3 years I've been doing this, I've never considered it. In fact, I have thought a lot about Speranza in the sense of the way the room flows because of how the buffet line and now the salad bars, kind of clog the center of the restaurant. I've thought a lot about blowing the back of the patio away so that we could expand not necessarily seating, but kitchen operation. And then more in the last year, I've thought a lot more about the bistro and the design going into bistro. So you've planted the seed. That's what you were hoping to do.
In years past, there would be, excuse me, meetings with each building with administration to discuss different things. When it comes time to make changes or ideas for the food here, could we do that so more residents have a chance to get some input instead of it just being the food committee or another small group someplace?
Yes. Simple answer. Yes. Yes.
When we first got here, like you said, it would require a person from the staff. The people waited out in front, and then she would say, I have a table of 6, the next 6. And there were no reserved tables. And that's how we met a lot of people. And it was wonderful.
Yes, that is the piece that comes up often, and especially in our dining committee, whether we are arguing the need for reservations or vice versa. But it often comes back to having a hostess. So, yep.
Dining together seems to be the primary social event of the day. And that's lovely. And one of the things, like, their community room was open to the rest of the dining room, and our small dining room is closed. And the joy of that is you could actually hear each other talk. So, because the main dining room is just plain noisy. So, and the smaller dining room means you can actually carry on a conversation with the 10 people at the table.
Anyone else? Are we still talking dining? Yeah.
Alexis, what about timing? I know that the redesign of the bistro is scheduled for this year, right? But if self-operation is on the table, wouldn't it make sense to figure out the self-operation before physical redesign of the bistro happens?
So I quickly want to share that we had set aside money this year, 2025, to work with architects and a design company to design or come up with design options for our bistro. So nothing is being built, but more so having the architects in, see what can and can't be done. With the hope, and it is a hope, that in 2026 we would be given a questionable number of dollars, because I didn't know what we would need to redesign the bistro, being that it is probably the most heavily used dining venue on campus, and it's where all of your friends, your family, our marketing guests, etc., go into. So that plan is on track. We have made zero commitments to a design in 2025, although we did have our very first call just recently with some preliminary things. They're waiting on some architectural floor plans to know structurally what can and can't happen. We did get told last week, Thursday or Friday, that we were approved for a bond project, $2 million to be given to TSJG to redesign the bistro. So I think the money is guaranteed. To answer your question, if we think self-op is on the table, should we get that figured out before we start redesigning the bistro? And I would say yes, except the self-op for TSJG is not in 2026. As far as I know now, and they've been very careful because they don't want to freak communities out or upset Morrison, who is still a working vendor of ours, that there are other communities that are in much dire need, that they would focus self-op and TSJG would come later. So if I were to hold up the bistro design, I could lose the bond funding that was approved. So I'm going to move forward with the bistro design. And if things change, then obviously I might need to rethink that. But I do feel that we're probably going to go another year under Morrison.
I'm just curious to know what is wrong with the bistro? What's your aim there?
No. Everyone likes it the way it is because change is hard. But I will say we've outgrown the space in terms of when it was built in 2009, we did not have a baker and we did not have a menu as large as we do, and we did not have grab and go. So because we introduced those items to the bistro and we are now very full in terms of census, we're serving a lot more people and we're serving a lot more food for a lot more people in such a small space. So it's not necessarily the dining seating area that is problematic. It's the preparation and the storage area that is problematic. For years, we have been telling you all that we've had to scale back the menu because fried items, there's only so much fryer space in there. It's even bigger than that. There's an Ansel system for exhaust that costs a ton that we would never be able to afford to adjust unless we made large modifications. With Sandy's baked goods, whether we have Sandy forever, which I hope we do, or we move on if she retired or something, we would want to be able to house that. She literally does what she does for all of you and all of our catering on like a 6-foot space. So those are the reasons I'm looking at bistro redesign, not because I don't like the way the dining room looks, but I would also argue that when you walk in and there is a line that you're greeted with, just the experience could be better if we looked at moving the register, moving the grab and go, and enclosing the kitchen space to give them real storage and not just a limited workspace because it has to look good from the front side, right? And I think that's what you lose function when you can see them cooking. And the hope is that I mean, I think they like to be open and exposed, but they don't have a lot of storage because of that. So that's what we're looking at changing. Yeah. No, we're not getting bigger. Yeah, we're not getting bigger. That was
Are you going to focus on, I know you want to make improvements, but would you focus on serving more people? It seems it's getting more crowded. So where are you?
the preliminary designs that were shared with us had a focus on back of house, focus on bakery in terms of accommodations for her, and then an expansion for outdoor seating that would give proper enclosures so that way we could have additional seating, but structurally we're not changing the walls of the bistro. But we could kind of move ourselves outside if it were done right.
One of the things I really enjoyed about the dining room in Yakima was it's light. That, I mean, go Tuscany, but it's all heavy furniture and dark furniture, and that's a little more Swedish modern, and this is a little more bright and very heavy. And I also liked that there was like the windows on that small dining area, and the way it was laid out, it was like almost lacework rather than wood and glass. It was light. So, and that feels a whole lot less closed in and crowded than dark.
Many of you had ran into Russ, my new boss. Hopefully you guys told him that I was amazing. And if you didn't, no. And it made me think of a video. I'm going to move on. But one of the things he did is when he walked around, he was taking in everything, and he would say things like, well, would you think about changing the color of that? And then I'd say, no, are you trying to get me killed? And then we'd go to another space and be like, well, when you redo that, would it be a different color? And I'm like, Russ, they will kill me here. They don't do change very well. And all he kept wanting to do was change everything. And I thought, oh my gosh. But joking aside, I do agree that the terraces is heavy, and I'm going to say Tuscan Mediterranean. The burnt colors, the oranges, the reds, which could feel heavy, and in some instances can feel dark, depending on your taste. The one thing that we have done really well is that we have run it throughout the entire campus, right? So in 2009, we did our Piazza building. We followed that with starting the remodels of Tuscany neighborhood, then our Sequoia neighborhood, then this was designed, and then our Grove was designed, and we started updating our lodges. And before you knew it, you were in Tuscany, whether you liked it or not. And what that does is it makes it really hard to start changing, right? So if you suddenly wanted blues and grays and lights and airy, it starts to stand out and starts getting very PC. So I'm not opposed to change. I personally am not. I know many of you would argue that changing things to blue would just be insane. But what I had shared with Russ, and hopefully many of you or most of you would agree, there are places and spaces that you can change that would not feel patchy. For example, we were talking about 2026, the Piazza building exterior is due for a repaint. And he asks Brian, would you think about changing the color? And if you guys know Brian, he's like, no, absolutely not. I've got to live here, dude. Like they'll kill me. And I said, Russ, this building is literally the start of our Tuscan theme. It is in the center of the campus on the main boulevard, frequented by every guest and every tour. The last thing you do is change that building, in my opinion. But if you're redesigning the bistro, where you walk in and it is a standalone amenity, the color palette can change because it's not visible to every other building on the main boulevard. It's interior. The same thing with our health center. Our health center is due for furniture really, really bad. Well, you can't just, you know how this, if you went inside and did a new color scheme throughout, but the exterior still was very Tuscan, and those could, you know, you'd have an expert tell you that the outside color and inside color kind of work together. Those are ways of changing and refreshing and making things timeless without shocking and really ruining the effect that we've created. So that's just my opinion. I hope you understand where I'm going with that. But I think interiors in isolated amenities are where you can make change, not exterior buildings in the center of campus.
The things I've read about aging well and that's it. To age well is to have change. And so maybe we could look at it that way.
Thank you, Maxie. You heard the lady.
Well, and I disagree. Well, I just wanted to ask if any thought has been given to replacing the tables in the bistro, the stickiness. I mean, it feels like they're dirty, and I know they aren't. I know it's the finish, but it's really.
Yeah, the idea is that everything gets replaced in the bistro. Yeah, yeah, everything. It would be tables, chairs, window coverings, appliances, cookware, dishes, everything. Everything. As long as you guys work with me to do it. If you fight me along the way, we're just going to let it sit. No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding. Just kidding. It is a little bit scary in my position to try to make change. You have to imagine. It's like decorating your home with stuff you hate, right? Then you hate the person that decorated your home. And I don't like that feeling. So try to work with as many. And I've learned this far is nobody agrees, right? You could sit right next to each other and disagree. So it's a careful line to walk. I just go back to when I started with the community, and I was completely oblivious to the dynamic of living in a community, working in a community. And I got hired to help new people move into Piazza. So I'm energetic. I'm excited. People want to live here. This is a brand new building. The apartments were gorgeous. I couldn't wait to show it off. But the people that lived here before Piazza, they were throwing darts. They hated it. They painted the building. That looks like macaroni and cheese. It's so ugly. And then a spa. No one's going to use a hair salon in a spa. It was just it. If you lived here at the time, it was disruptive, and it was taking away something for something new. And Mavis, so it was like there was no. But the idea of it was, as much as it is disruptive, there is an aspect to be the best option in town for retirement living. We do have to stay ahead, which means sometimes you're on the fence between pleasing everyone that lives here, but appealing to those that are looking and considering this community. And that doesn't always feel great. I know it doesn't feel like you're sitting there saying, Alexis, I'm not going to be there to see that, and I don't want you to change it in the meantime. I totally understand and respect that. But again, I think at the heart of it, if we're trying to stay current and stay full and keep operating in a way where we can serve residents like you and your friends, it's a business. You do have to do it. So it's just working with all of you in a way that we can partner, and it doesn't feel like complete sticker shock. You're a part of the process, understanding that you can give us suggestions, and then ultimately I'll make the decision. And you don't kill me at the end. That's the end of the story. All right. Is this still about dining? Dining? No. Okay.
This is about Tuscany. I think there's an easy solution to the no change dilemma. You don't assume that the color palette of Tuscany is narrow. It's broad. The architecture of Tuscany is not a narrow set of designs. I think you need to tell Russ Mast that you need a retreat to Tuscany so that you can see that broad continuum, because I think you could choose change, but still within respecting what you want to keep.
All in favor of sending me to Tuscany? Come on, this is being recorded. We want to send this to him. I do agree that we sometimes hone in on this palette right here, the wines, the oranges, the burns, and there's a way to introduce other colors that would complement without doing what we've all done in our own homes, and it's you change one thing and before you know it, you're pretty much buying a new house because nothing matches.
Couple of suggestions. Number one, my mom taught me to keep your flooring and your walls neutral. Then you can change the whole feeling a lot less expensively by changing the upholstery, drapes, etc. The other thing is we have to walk across pavements somewhere. And consequently, like you have all of the plastic. The reason being that if we go to lighter colors, like many of us still have the very light beige carpeting in our, of course, that's being replaced a lot. But those of us that have, apartments 8-10 years ago, yeah, that's a real difficulty. We come out, put on shoes to go outside. The minute we come in, we change to slippers or whatever. But you can't do that with the major buildings. So watch your color toning.
So Lene said her mom taught her a few tricks of the trade. Keep your flooring and your walls neutral, and then change the look of things with upholstery and fabrics and things like that. But understandably, we probably can't go too neutral or too light in our common areas because walkers, wheelchairs, and our feet alone just walking through campus will destroy the flooring. So it is a balance, right? Yep. As you look around on the carpet right now, don't look down. All right. What hot topics are on your mind besides dining and decor? How about parking? No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. It's really bad today. We warned everybody, though. We warned everybody.
I have a question about this coming weekend when Milano is going to be shut in. We haven't received any information to tell us how to get in and out of that building. Do we have to stay in it for 3 days?
The answer to that is no, and you haven't received any information because we are still waiting on the project manager to be able to give us a plan. Who was I talking to? The project manager is juggling us and River Park right now. So we are kind of going back and forth. If you've been up there, they're doing them during the week and then us over the weekends primarily. So we hope no later than tomorrow to know what the weekend will look like because we need several days to figure out messaging for entering the campus and exiting and all of that as well. Did I see another hand fly up? Nope. Yes.
I've changed the subject and I've talked to people and they have the same issue. I love to take a bath. The bathtub in Milano is unusable. It's so narrow that you can't turn. And if for the elderly, you need to get on your knees to get in and out. It is totally impossible. I had a PT person come in and he put another bar in. He gave me a little step thing to help. And you know what? You almost have to be a gymnast to get in and out of that tub because you can't turn. And I'm so unhappy not having a bathtub. I don't know what can be done. I don't know if anything can be done, but it's like unusable space.
Anybody else using their bathtub every day? As a bathtub, not I didn't mean are you bathing every day? Yeah, thank you, Peggy, for doing that. I mean, are you sitting in a bath? Nobody else? So I will say I'm not going to open it up to the room. Let's stay back and chat. Because your question is what can be done. I don't know what can be done. So we'll chat and I'll figure out putting you in touch with Brian and potentially Barkin, who would come in and look at it. Yeah. Is there another one?
I thought we were not supposed to park in the red zones, and I noticed today everybody's parking in the red zones. So I'm concerned about next week.
So there was a ton of messaging that went out to our team members specifically because residents who drive have assigned parking. So we had team members who park along the north wall and the Antonella lot behind the Grove who cannot park anywhere because it's blocked off. So the messaging to team members, which was also put in the Tribune, was to find anything uncovered, including red zones, and we indicated on a map where those red zones would be, which I did see some today that were being used that were not on the map, but I did not know for sure if that was a guest of somebody that obviously was not a team member and wouldn't have known, or somebody that just didn't get the memo, right? So yes, today it is a complete free-for-all. I was telling someone I had to leave campus twice, so I got to play Find Your Spot 2 times today. That was awesome. But it'll be better tomorrow. They're going to open up that parking this evening, and then team members will go back to their normal space. Between Milano. Yeah, see, that was not a place for, you're seeing team members do that or just cars in general? Yeah, that's where I saw it as well. So I can't say for sure if that was somebody's family member who circled and got tired and finally pulled. Yeah. So hopefully I was sharing with someone, especially as you guys were making your way up here, between 1 and 3 is shift change for our campus. So our morning people will go home and our evening people will start to arrive, and it gets really, really bad. The instruction was to find parking using good judgment. And then shortly after the 3 o'clock hour, they could go out and move their cars to be more, I guess, a better use of the campus. But in that window, it was double shifts on campus trying to find parking. So we've told everybody, let your supervisor know after you get in, when you know that the first shift has left, for you to go out and move your cars. Because we did have people pretty much, everything but right in the middle of the road, I think, is what we've seen today. So yes, bad. That's okay.
Well, we walk a lot, and we walk early in the morning. We walk all day. The other night we were out, and it was dark in my mind, and it looked dark, but the gate was wide open, allowing people to, not the main gate, the one that allows you to get to the doctor's office. And it was like 9:30 at night. That's late to us. So when we went back to our place, I stopped off at the security booth and asked him, the gate's wide open. Anybody could walk in from the street and start sleeping on the street. And I got sort of concerned. He did a very good job of explaining to me why it wasn't unsafe, but then he also mentioned he was the only one watching all the screens in the booth that night for some reason. I reckon that's a temporary problem, right? Having that gate open. Okay.
We had a few instances where the 35 stalls, originally when we started renting, we only had buildings and grounds using it. They get here first thing in the morning. They all show up and use the stalls. They're there until a certain time. So they pretty much all arrive and depart at the same time. Well, then it became, we need anyone and everyone to start using, first come, first serve. So they were having to leave the booth multiple times to be able to get the gate opened up. However, the doctor's office has the main gate that closes on Fresno Street. So that was not open to campus unless they jumped that fence first. So again, we did talk about it. The guard was instructed to leave the gate open and watch the camera there. So that way he wasn't having, or she wasn't having to leave and let the 3 or 4 late night cars out. Team members were very worried when I did this announcement in the dining department about getting their car out of there. And I said, just like we have a key to lock the door, we have our gate, we have a key to unlock the gate too. So we can get you in there at any time. But then I committed that, and we were having trouble getting someone over there to unlock so people could go home. Yeah. So problems. All right. Parking, dining, interior and exterior decor. What else needs my desk goose? We've covered a lot today. Mugs, food. Do you have questions about it? No? Mugs. I do. I have a winner. And I always forget until the very, very end. Amy picked this beautiful little succulent up from Trader Joe's, which is now one of her favorite places now that we turned her on to it. And I walked through and I looked at different mugs. And I have to tell you, one really settled with me today. And it's Mavis's mug. Only because I was telling her it really feels like it's talking to me. So, Mavis, you're succulent. So, yes, it's not a goose. It's more like a turkey. So it's getting ready for the season, but it is a bird, right? And for those that can't see it, he's got a shoe on his head, a hat on his foot, and when you turn the mug upside down, it says, "Don't worry, I've got everything under control." And since we just covered a few things that you can tell I'm juggling, this is definitely something that resonates with me. I might need to buy that from you, friend. All right. Shirley, I didn't give you the mic. You didn't wave me down. I already forgot. All right. Everyone, don't leave. You're a captive audience. Don't forget that.
And it's me again. And I do need a few more people to sign up to write thank you notes. So if you haven't, would you please see me afterwards? I need just about 6 or 7 more people to sign up for thank you notes. And those who have signed up will get packets out on resident council on November 5th. And then you'll have 2 weeks to write your thank you notes. And on that note, our thermometer out there is not overflowing yet. The deadline is noon, Friday, Halloween. So we really want that thermometer to bust open and color all those leaves in. Last year, we had almost $260,000 raised, and right now we're sort of behind. So get your pocketbooks out, talk to people who have not donated yet or made contributions for the team members. They're very deserving people, and we want to send them some good news come December. So thank you very much.
All right. She wouldn't let you. We're 5 after the hour. I'm going to stick around if you have topics, questions, or concerns. And please, there are lots of extra cookies on these tables. So if you liked what you had, grab another one so they don't go to waste. Thank you all for coming out. It was good to see everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day.